Hi, good afternoon. You can all hear me okay? Yes. Great. Thanks, Sophia, very much. Yes, I'm Tracey Porst, and I've been working in the web space since I graduated from this university in about 2003 in interactive and visual design. I tried to be a coder and I wasn't very good at it, so consequently I am annoying to developers because I know a little bit about it, but I like to design things and I like to write as well. So I've been using lots of different CMSs over the years, but I have to confess that I'm platform agnostic. I don't use WordPress all the time. I use Joomla a lot. I have coded, I know. That's why I felt I had to confess. I really had to lay it out up front. I'm also a Blue supporter. Anyway, so I'm off to a good start, aren't I? Well, I'm here to win you over. Okay, so I think content, and I know that Joe and Lucy spoke a bit about content and design, so I'm going to basically consolidate my thoughts in that space because I think they really are important in terms of user experience and creating positive interactions with websites and other online media. I really like the fact that usability.gov talks about content strategy and how it talks about focusing on the planning, creation, delivery and governance of content. So it's really not just about the words on the page, very important, and it was interesting that I think Joe was talking about words are becoming more important as well, but I think it's an interplay, it's an ecosystem within a website, I think, and they all have to work together. So I think what I try to focus on most is ensuring that content is useful and findable, that it's well structured, and it's easy, and it being easy to find is vital to improving the whole kind of user interface design and user experience of a website. So, as I said, I tried developing websites from code, dabbling in PHP, then discovered that other CMS system, have recently started working with WordPress as well. They're all awesome, and I think we're really lucky. And I think, as Lucy said before, as designers, we're in a great place. We have all these opportunities, and design does have value. I think just this week, Johnny Ive became Chief Design Officer at Apple. So designers are becoming very important at that C-suite executive level as well. So I've been working in corporate communications, I've been making instructional videos, I've done lots of infographics over the years, lots of websites, always factoring in user experience and looking at creative direction and brand management as well. And I think brand management is very important because it's basically a company entrusting you to manage how people perceive them. And what I tried to do is reflect that through visual communication techniques. So I think great content meets users' needs and supports key business objectives. So you really need to know who your client is before you even start thinking about what content you're going to write or design. I always start to think, how is it going to engage the target audience and how is it going to inform them? And I've got a case study which I'll share with you, one of my clients, and talk to you about how my team and I attempted to do this. We want content that makes people come back for more, that want to engage with you, they're interested, there's a call to action, they want to learn more about your company. The case study I'm going to talk about is a company called Fitgenes. It's a relatively new thing. Basically, it's a company that does genetic profiling for personal health and wellness. So it's about what my role was as the media and communications manager was to communicate genetic profiling for personalised interventions for health and wellness. It's a new space, it's a very interesting space, there's a whole lot of science under the hood, and what my job was to demystify the science of nutrigenetics and nutrigenomics for the masses. So I don't know if any of you know either of those words, nutrigenetics and nutrigenomics. I certainly didn't when I started working with this company. So I had to learn it. So we were talking before about interviewing clients, doing your own research. I sat and listened to the scientist, the chief scientific officer, who uses all this very dry scientific language, but was also very passionate and wanted somebody to communicate what he created in the bigger picture. And so this company now has done very, very well for itself. It's chugging along. It does work in a new space, and it's in the hands of allied health practitioners and general GPs. So what I had to do was create some visual collateral and some words about how to communicate this. So just in terms of background, nutrigenomics is a branch of nutritional genomics. So it studies the side effects of foods and food constituents on gene expression. So it means that nutrigenomics is research that focuses on identifying and understanding molecular level interactions between nutrients and other dietary bioactives with the genome. So like I've highlighted, you know, a couple of words there that get used a lot in this space, and it validates how this particular program works, but nobody's ever heard of it. So I had to learn what they were. The other thing on the visual side of things is this is how it was typically presented visually. So I think my favourite is the one on the right there. I'm not even sure what that is. So I think you can see there's quite a bit of clip art in there. That's not my artwork. But that's when I started researching and trying to find out what this is all about. And what I very quickly discovered was that nobody cared about the science behind it. They just wanted to know, how is that going to make me feel at the end of the day? What are the benefits? So there's some marketing kind of aspects to all of this as well, isn't there? You're talking about the benefits to the end user. The other thing is, when you come back to these, you don't see any faces or people or personalisation with this. It's all very science and dry. What I did was start to apply a face. And so we worked with another branding company actually, and we decided we wanted to communicate the fact that it was going to make your life better. You're going to feel well, you're going to be happy. And so we tried to personify that through the imagery and the visual communication techniques that we looked into. So the challenge for me was to communicate and design content that explains the science of nutrigenetics and nutrigenomics to a broad audience here and overseas. So you need to start to think about local markets in Malaysia, in Hong Kong, the US has taken it up, New Zealand. So you're starting to think about how to communicate broadly using colour and imagery and language. So we had to make content that people could understand. So design is about simplicity. So for me it was about taking away all the layers of science and jargon and clip art and synthesising it down into something a bit more digestible. So what worked best? It was a process of trial and error, that's for sure. As I said, we learned pretty quickly that no one was interested in the science. So we started to talk about people and how people could relate to this program. And again, as I said, we started to personalise it, we started to use everyday language, and we created faces and applied faces to programs. And what were the benefits to the end users? So we started to design some graphics. So I had a team of two other young interactive and visual designers working with me. So they knew HTML and CSS, which is very important. They also knew how to design graphics and communicate visually as well. So we started to take all the elements, these science-based elements, and put them into artwork and create graphics that people could just look at really quickly and get a sense of what it was all about. And I mean, this was one of the earlier iterations of the graphics that we designed as well. So basically it's, you know, talking about how the food that we consume affects our DNA. And our DNA basically responds to the nutrients, the lifestyle factors, like how much alcohol we consume, whether we smoke cigarettes, whether we do exercise. And we wanted to communicate that your DNA isn't static. It expresses itself up and down, like a dimmer switch, if you like. So we had to say, we had to kind of communicate that very clearly, and it took a long, long time. It probably took about a year before we really started to get a sense of ourselves and what it is we were trying to say. And of course we had to take feedback, you know, and that's where websites and, you know, forums and things like that are great, because you use those as an opportunity to learn more about your product. So for example, we have all of our genes have different names. So we use this as a way of communicating what IL-6 does and how it has clinical relevance. So we have practitioners, very specialised practitioners, who learn how to interpret a genetic profile report. So basically, as a patient, you do a buccal swab, little white kind of swab, put it in your mouth, it gets sent away. Certain genes, certain lifestyle genes are tested, and then it's all put into a report, and the practitioner is taught how to read the report and then relay that into a health and wellness program. So it was all we started to look at how do we create collateral for the practitioners as much as we needed to for the broader target audience, the patients. So we started to gain, we created graphics, we had a branding specification and guidelines, and we used those, and we started to communicate a lot more clearly and cleanly, I think, what particular genes did and what benefits they have, and how we can upregulate them or dial them down if we need to. What we also did was we sought and wrote testimonials from real people. And we were talking before about storytelling and narratives being very important and more relatable, and that's what we decided to do as well. So, this beautiful lady who'd had all sorts of weight issues throughout her life came to one of our practitioners and went through the program, and she was so delighted, and she wrote us this beautiful story which we use all the time and we have permission to use. So, and she's very relatable. She's not a stock photo. She's a very relatable lady. She lives in Perth, and she told her story. We also used language that is positive, relatable and actionable. So we use words like discover how to reach your health potential. And we iterate on all of that as well. We change as things change in the marketplace, we respond to that and we iterate and we tweak our designs as well. So basically for me, I think great content requires an investment in time. You need to do some research, absolutely. As I was saying, I would never have known how to communicate nutrigenetics and nutrigenomics without that. You need metadata, and you need some web writing skills and some editorial oversight. And I think that is a really important thing to communicate to your client and convey the value of that to them, because you can do so much more for them. And I've found in my experience with clients, they try and take shortcuts, and I'll explain some examples of that. And they think that they can just buy aggregated content as well. So we've really got to get our clients to invest in creating content and in imagery to accompany it. So I think for me, when content isn't great, it tends to be overwritten or redundant. If it's hard to find, is it really relevant? People will come and have a look at you and then they'll leave. So you can have a beautifully designed website with great content, or hopefully what you think is great content, but is it actually what people have come to look for on your site? Is that what they're interested in? Or are you just kind of playing to trends, which only last for so long, as you know? So you really want to create interaction and engagement with your brand through your website. I have examples of clients who look to, like business advisory services or something, and they just want to fill up their websites with aggregated data from, the tax office report. If I was interested in that, I'd just go to the tax office. Why would I come to your site first to have to find it? Why not create original material and become a thought leader in your own right about these things, and get people to engage with and take ownership of sections of their website. Create areas of speciality. Get them to write case studies and stories about their successes and make it real and realistic. And as I said, content creation, the more original it is from the source, I think, the more valuable it is, and the more you get a better level of interaction with your client base, because they'll get to know you and not just sort of feeding through data from, the tax office or, whoever, or the government. So another example I've had where, a client will want to create this huge website with, pages and pages of material, whether it's their own or otherwise, because they think that, it's all about quantity rather than quality. They think it will help with their SEO, that it somehow provides more value to their clients, and then it gives them some sort of competitive differentiation. I try and say, look, you know, it's all very well to have, you know, relevant industry kind of placed content in your website, but wrap it around who you are as a business and who you are as, and what you are trying to communicate to your clients about your business and your UPS, your unique selling point. What are you providing for them, and provide them with that. I sometimes think that less is more with websites as well. The more content that you have, the more you need to keep it up to date. And that's great. If you've genuinely got a big website to manage and maintain, absolutely, but you do need, clients need to understand that it does require maintenance and time. And if you don't keep it up to date, it gets old very quickly as well. And then sometimes, you know, I hand over this beautifully designed website that I think is fantastic, and then I give it to the client, and then they start managing it themselves. And then I go in and check back and go, oh, have you all experienced that, where you've built a... And I think, oh, I've got a new client, I'll send them the link, better just check it first. And you go, no, I'm not sending that out. But that's okay. So sometimes navigation can break, as you know as well. So I think websites are ecosystems, and they need maintenance, and they need nurturing, and they need commitment as well. So I think if you've got too much, you know, do a content audit and find what is the most relevant. Look at, you know, page stats, which pages are getting used, which ones aren't. It's not all, you know, I work with a lot of accountants as well, and they want numbers. They always want numbers. I'm a designer working with accountants. We've had to find we found our happy place. We kind of found some common language. And once you do that, you build up a sense of trust between each other as well. So, you know, you want to, you want to prove to your client that they have to spend some time in content and spend some time on their website, because that's where a lot of their money is going these days as well, into digital media. And as I said, it's a great time to be a designer, because creativity, from what I've seen very much in the last few years, definitely has a place in a boardroom, as we know from Apple. But creativity also offers a unique point of difference for companies to embrace as well. So, what about user-generated content? Say you want to launch a forum for your customers so they can help each other solve their problems. So you often see that with, you know, maybe a hosting company or something like that, where they set up all these forums, and basically they just let you answer each other's questions, and they just monitor it. So, you know, it can be a low-cost solution. It does require maintenance. But is it a good choice? You know, somebody's still got to maintain it. It's not, you can't just hand over a website to somebody with all the content in it and send it out into the ether. I think if that sort of scenario is going to work, and I've discussed this with clients, you need to plan for when, you know, the queries and the posts slow down. You might need to start looking at, you know, seeding it with questions of your own and talking about it and generating your own content and creating discussion points. You might need to promote it and advertise it, and you really want to look at how you're going to drive user adoption as well. So, for the end of the day, for me, good content's about creating a satisfying, unique, and a good experience for your users on your website. So, of course, then I get asked, how much is that worth? How much is that going to cost? It's a really, I don't know, I get asked that all the time, and I've kind of figured out how to answer it in not answering it directly. And yeah, employing my best wordsmithing skills to say, you tell me, what do you want? You want to spend this amount each month, or do you want to spend a larger amount? It's up to you. Convince people that it's worth spending the money in good content, visually and written. Create content that is unique, and that it's, I think importantly, that authentically embodies the brand and the organisation, and it helps your visitors do something when they get to the site. I think that's really important. It creates engagement. I think creating user personas is a really important part of the development process and the design process. It allows you to figure out who your users are and create content that addresses their requirements. I've looked at creating specialised content for clients as well, looking at white papers and addressing solutions to known problems. It's often about trying to create opportunities to write content and create content, like where do I start? And it was interesting, we were talking about, Joe was talking about ebooks before doing really, really well. I think that's great. I think ebooks are fantastic. And they're a great way to help you kind of build yourself up or create a profile for yourself as a thought leader. News releases, create press releases, add them to your website, put them out through social media. I haven't even touched on social media, but I think we all know how valuable that is. And it gets you directly in front of your audience as well. I like to talk to clients about blogs, creating podcasts, online video channels, anything that creates content that is audience focused. With Fitgenes, we started a blog. One of our key practitioners started a blog, but of course, that requires commitment as well, and other things get in the way. So to go back to the Fitgenes example, we created content based around certain user profiles. So for that, it was the practitioners, the allied health practitioner market, integrative GPs. We're interested in as well. Integrative GPs are doctors that are interested in health and wellness around natural therapies as well, and combining the two. So we had fairly specific personalities there, and then we also had the broader patient market, and we wanted to drive those patients to the practitioners as well. So we created a lot of marketing collateral for the practitioners to use in their clinic, and that allowed us to ensure that our brand was consistent and that our brand voice was as well, and everybody was saying the same thing. So we had a massive job in creating a lot of visual and written material. We had to understand who the demographic was, and we wanted to focus on visual versus text-based content, because previously the content was all pages and pages of scientific material that validates the science behind it all, but it didn't really tell me as a person, how's that going to make my day better? How's that going to help me get out of bed in the morning and be healthy and happy? So that's what we started to focus on. We designed content for engagement. The other thing that we did, we created a software platform as well, among other things. So I had to work with a developer to design the interface for that. And that was interesting because this was the software that pulled in the genetic profile data and produced the report for the practitioners. And then that software then had to incorporate anthropometric data, so BMI, biometrics and all that kind of stuff. It had to also pull in pathology data, pathology results from blood tests and the buccal swab. And then we had to produce a report, an intervention plan as well. So we had to, this was new software. There are other companies in the genetic profiling space. I'm sure you've all heard of 23andMe being one. Well, what they would do is do the profile and then go, here you go, Tracy. You have a predisposition towards getting type 2 diabetes in your 60s, for example. That was it. It didn't tell me what I could do to prevent that from happening. And that's where Fitgenes took up the slack and said, well, we'll do that too, but we'll tell you how you can prevent that from happening. So we don't talk about, the company doesn't talk about, serious health issues like cancer or anything like that. It's lifestyle health and wellness options. So we had this software that nobody knew, it was new, but it had never been designed before as well, so we had that as a challenge, and then we had to create collateral for practitioners to want to subscribe to the software. So we created a webinar. So I hosted a webinar and I recorded it. So there was a piece of content that we could reuse as well. So, I had a webinar with people from the US and across Australia, and then we recorded it, and then we broke it up and used it to promote certain aspects of the software and its capabilities. We used YouTube. So I've talked a lot about how we could communicate visually. So YouTube has been great. A great way for us we filmed video testimonials. And I had basically no budget. So I had to figure out ways of doing this very cheaply. So I used design students, I used photography students, we paid them of course, and that allowed them, and it was a bit of quid pro quo. They'd do the work, I'd give them references, and we created an ecosystem for ourselves. And these guys were really, really clever, and they did some terrific work. So we created webinars and animations and infographics. I'm not sure if I've got enough time, but I'll see if I can show you the blue one in the top left corner as well. So we created slideshows, used all of our social media options. That's a great place to start to place content out in the world for startups as well, who've typically not got a lot of money to begin with. We designed the interface for Prackware, the software platform. We put it in context, so we put the interface into a context and showed people what it would look like and how they should use it. And we knew with our demographic as well that typically naturopaths, dietitians, nutritionists, they aren't particularly tech savvy either. So I think Lucy was saying before, we're very well educated in the web space. And we've got to avoid making assumptions that our clients are as well. So we have to know who they are and create our content around that and their level of ability in terms of web as well. Because, we can have, and everybody expects everything to be responsive as well and just work well and just get rolled out. So we create user personas to build content around specific needs. We create FAQ pages. Okay, we take contributions from people. We give instructions on how to do something, and we give webinar demonstrations as well. So we really kind of use that whole idea of creating a user persona to address the issues that our demographic wanted answers to, because they were very interested in it. Everybody's very interested in this way of, to be honest, personalised healthcare is kind of the next big thing. There's a whole, as Sophia mentioned in my introduction, the healthcare technology space is growing, hugely at the moment. And this is something that contributes to that, and we're trying to create an ecosystem and become a thought leader in that space as well. So we were always looking for ideas about content. So we started a blog, we picked particular topics, we used our social media platforms. We've got material for ebooks, so we're looking at creating ebooks. And we've got so much visual collateral, we just need the resources, and that's the other thing is getting the resources to build all this material. And you want to create and design material that can be reused and reconstituted as much as possible. So we get people to write articles, we put out a media release, we create directories of practitioners. We do anything that we can to kind of spread the word and create a bigger footprint across the internet using our words and our images. Testimonials are fantastic, obviously. They're very relatable. We try and find testimonials. We talk to patients who've been through the program for one reason or another. It might be that they've had issues with type 2 diabetes and they've not been able to conquer that as an issue. Often that's a genetic issue for a lot of people, but it's also a lifestyle disease as well. So weight management, cardiovascular health. We did a whole campaign around women's health as well, and we connected with people in the space there as well. Yep, okay. So lots of ideas there. Define your goals, very important. Define your goals before you start creating any more content or any content, and that will drive your design process a lot better. I think presentation is super important. So you're about building positive perceptions about your brand. Good writing, polished graphics always seems to work. Really define what action you want your users to take and write and design towards this. If you're interested in interaction design, there's a guy called Bill Verplank, and he talks about what people feel, do and think about this as well. Sit down and do your concept mapping and your brainstorming before you put pen to paper. Think about who you're trying to reach and define those people. Does your target audience read blogs? Do they go on Facebook? Yes or no? Is that the right platform for you? Need to think about that. I really like this quote. It's simple. It just is, design is creativity with strategy. And there's a guy called John Mader in the interaction design field who just simply says design is simplicity. So you can tell with Fitgenes, it's a very complex piece of science. So I took that approach in terms of trying to simplify it. And Einstein's always for a quote. Creativity is intelligence having fun. think about what problem you're trying to solve as well when you're designing your material. Lots of ideas about how successful or how to measure the success of your content as well. As I said, I work with accountants, they like numbers. Always trying to tell them it's not just about metrics, it's about who's talking about us offline as well. Are people responding and commenting to you, all that kind of stuff. I've got to wind it up, but I've got 10 quick tips and I'm happy to share those with anybody if they would like to. Think about, you know, creating material and words that are scannable, using lists, make it searchable, write well, okay? Write as if there's a person is speaking as well. So good copywriters are gold in my book. Lots of links, use headings, use lists, and be specific about your users' requirements. So just to sum up really quickly, concept mapping and brainstorming, as boring as it is, read the company prospectus or the IM. You'll find fodder for content in there. Discuss goals, manage expectations, and look for sources of inspiration. I read that book. It's like a graphic novel. And of course, there's always a glass of wine and a pen and paper when you really need to sit down and think about great content. Thank you very, very much, WordCamp Brisbane. Thank you.
There's a lot of food for thought there. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions? We've probably got time for 2, possibly 3 quick questions. Yes.
Thank you. My question is about motivation. When someone reads something, there is both a positive gain, I will win something, and there's negative gain, I will not get something if I don't act. So for example, health insurance or car tyres. How much, which is the more converting motivation? Is it that I'm going to get some benefit from buying this product, or I better buy it because I don't like the negative outcome?
Yeah, it's a good question, isn't it? To think, I think it comes down to the person at the end of the day, like, and what you're selling. Like with insurance, it's like, well, it's kind of, if you don't get insurance and you lose everything, it's all gone. Whereas what we tried to do with Fitgenes was be positive and not go, look, if you don't do our program, you'll get diabetes. It was never about that. It was about saying, let's be motivated and happy. And I kind of think it depends, to be honest, on the context. If I can put it that way.
Persona journeys probably help with that.
You
use the personas probably help with that.
Definitely.
One more question.
Thanks for that, chat. I'd love to know how you get a budget to do 1 year of research before you get started.
Oh no, that was my time.
Really?
Because I felt that would allow me to create better content. So I put a year of research would be fantastic, but at the same time I'm creating collateral as well. So if I've got to write a flyer, a DL flyer on the program, I'm researching it at the same time and then writing it. So it kind of wasn't a vertical channel, if you like. It was like, okay, I need to write about this, so I better go and find out about it. And and it was a process of just doing it over time because it's such a big area. There's so many elements involved in it, and yeah, so that would be fantastic. If you work that out, let me know.
Just like one more quick question, and my time has gone off. I'm sorry, everybody.
Hi, I've just got a quick question. Great talk, by the way. Sorry, up here.
Oh, sorry, beg your pardon.
Great talk.
Thank you.
You've obviously done a heck of a lot of content right there. The question is, how do you structure that content cost to the client? Because that's a lot of work there.
It is,
and it's not normally that amount of work is questionable whether you cover that in the normal website setup.
Yep.
So how did you reach that with the client? And was it an ongoing content cost, or was it just a one-off?
It was ongoing. So they engaged us for about 2 years to design and create content. So and it's worth their while as well because they could just hand stuff to me and I'd know. I didn't need to be briefed every time. And it was a process of building incrementally on what we had each time. And so it was about product development and then going, all right, well, we've got the baseline here of the science. let's talk about a women's health program. And so it was a gradual build, and I was lucky enough to have it, and I still do have an ongoing engagement with her.
Thank you very much, Tracey, and thanks everyone for the questions.